Hello and welcome to the CXOToday's edition of Fireside Chats. There has been an enormous amount of rhetoric about the Indian semiconductor industry and building up a semiconductor ecosystem in India over the last 2 years. Admittedly, the government has gone full throttle and has created an India semiconductor mission to spearhead the whole process. Questions remain. For instance, if you're 70 years late into the business, then how do you secure a place in the top 10? How do you ensure that there is right talent developed? How do you ensure that there is enough research and development effort that goes into the whole process to make us a semiconductor player in the global scheme of things? To answer all this, we have today a very special guest. Mr. Rajeev Chandrashekhar is a former Member of Parliament, a policy maker. He was a minister in the earlier Information Technology Ministry. And more importantly, he's been a player in the global semiconductor space, having worked in Intel for 5 years. We felt this was the right person to ask these questions and get us the kind of clarity that we needed in the semiconductor industry in India. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rajeev Chandrashekhar.
Chandrashekar, first of all, thanks a lot for joining me here. This is a part of the fireside chat that I have with leaders to understand their perspective. So we talk about the self-reliant semiconductor ecosystem, but clearly there are some challenges that are out there. And if you are going to be a part of a global hub, and you said global supply chain, then these are going to be infrastructural challenges at the very base and talent challenges. So would you like to shed some light on that?
No, look, I think it is clear that nothing that we do in the semiconductor space will be without challenges. Please understand that India is, in a sense, 70 years behind the curve in terms of our entry into the semiconductor ecosystem in 2022. For several years, we have missed that boat, and several governments did not recognize this opportunity. So clearly it is, it's like a starting line where we are already behind the starting line and many others have already raced forward. But that is why we are working so hard, and the government has come up with this policy. And you have seen in the last 2 years the tremendous progress, last 2.5 years, the tremendous progress that has been made. We have now investments in fabs, investments in packaging units, investments that are coming into fabless design companies. As today's program, Accenture themselves have acquired 3 companies. We are building out the talent pool for not just the Indian ecosystem, but for the global requirements of semiconductor. And we are also going to focus on research and innovation. So I will argue back to those who are, in a sense, pessimistic, or those who see this as a road paved with challenges. I would say that yes, it is certainly a road paved with challenges, but it is these are challenges that we have to and we are capable of dealing with, including the issues of, like you said, infrastructure or import-export bottlenecks that are very, very essential to the success of a global ecosystem like the semiconductor ecosystem is.
So we talked about 2 things. We talked about being a part of a global supply chain.
Correct.
I also heard India is a demand driver by itself. The kind of demand that we have. Do you see which one do you see takes precedence?
No, look, I must. This is again a very nuanced issue that needs to be clarified. India, for many years, our manufacturing was about import substitution. We are no longer a country that is focusing on import substitution alone. We are looking at export competitiveness. Our manufacturing ecosystem, whether it is a Honda car or an Apple phone or a Samsung phone or a Dell computer, these are being manufactured not just to cater to Indian demand, it is to cater to global markets and global customers, which is why post-COVID, people are looking at India as a part of and a growing presence in these global value chains for electronics. So our ambition, our Prime Minister's ambition, is to become a significant growing presence on the global value chains and the global supply chains for all things electronics, all things innovation. And the moment you say all things electronics, automatically it's all things semiconductor. The semiconductor ecosystem in India cannot be and will not be India-centric. It is India-focused, India hubbed, but the market for these semiconductors, whether it's a design product or a made in product or made in India product or packaged in India product, will be the global markets, the global consumers, the global device manufacturers. So there is absolutely no ambiguity that this is a globally competitive, globally competing industry that is being built out.
So we can't be really kind of being into a shell and say, okay, we're going to do it for us and we'll satisfy
Because
our demand.
post-COVID, the world wants much more open, much more transparent global value chains, and they are wanting India to be part of that. And certainly this is not the time for India to go into a shell and say, we will make for ourselves and ourselves alone. Because today there cannot be any manufacturing company anywhere in the world that makes either a car or a plastic mug or a semiconductor or an electronics piece of equipment that can only cater to a limited market, because you need to be globally competitive, you need to be globally relevant. And that is why Prime Minister's vision is to make India a major force in the global value chain, in the global supply chains, and global innovation ecosystem.
I noticed that twice you mentioned in your speech that, you said that let's not try to be dominant and let's try to be inclusive and have partnerships.
You see, when you start getting into using metaphors like that, you sort of start losing credibility, because semiconductors is not a space today, even today, where any one country dominates. If the Americans and the US with billions of dollars don't dominate semiconductors, and you still have a Taiwan and a Korea do so well, this is no longer the equation that is relevant to the future of tech. No one country will dominate. No one country will control. It is going to be a partnership of like-minded, trusted countries, like-minded, trusted democracies that are going to shape the future of tech. India will be part of that leadership pack. It will be US, it will be certainly Europe, it will be Israel, it will be Australia, Korea, Japan. But it is never going to be a case where either a Japan is going to dominate semiconductor, or a US is going to dominate semiconductor, or Taiwan is going to dominate semiconductor. It's impossible. It's not possible. So therefore, when people from our point of view, our perspective, our Prime Minister has been very clear from 22 January. We want to be a growing presence in the entire semiconductor ecosystem. We don't have the hubris, or we don't have these, this sort of impractical notions that we are going to be the best and the biggest in manufacturing, or we are going to be the best and the biggest in design in the future. We want to be a significant player. We want to be a respected partner. And you will see that these MOUs that the US government is entering into with India for ISET, critical and emerging technology, Europeans are entering into with India, the Japanese are entering into with India, Koreans are entering, shows that at the end of the day, they recognize that the future of tech will be determined by these kind of partnerships, where we will be good in like 2 out of 5 things. The Japanese will be good in maybe something. The Americans will be good in something. Taiwanese will be good in large scale volume process and manufacturing. And that is how the world will move forward. We certainly don't want it where an authoritarian country or a non-transparent country controls all of this technology of the future that is going to impact you and me and all our lives. So that is our approach.
So that brings me to the point of, you're saying these partnerships will be among sovereigns, and notwithstanding the geopolitical vagaries that are going to happen, do you think these partnerships will survive and thrive?
Geopolitical vagaries. Look, an innovator in the US and an innovator in India, a large corporation in the US and a large corporation in India, or an innovator in India. These are natural partnerships because both countries have rule of law, both countries have contractual law, both countries have talent, and these are the partnerships that are going to shape the future of tech. Look back at the history of how we have reached here. No prime minister or president sat down on a table and said, America, thou shall be the greatest in semiconductors and computing. It didn't happen. It was Bill Gates, it was Andy Grove. Of course, there was an enabling policy environment. The US Armed Forces and the US Air Force and the Defense, DARPA helped a lot. All of those things are what the governments ought to do, which is enable successful ideas coming to fruition, which is exactly what is happening in India today. That is exactly how democracies work. It is not the government that builds, it is the young innovator that builds. It is not the government that is successful, it's the young innovator that is successful. but that success radiates through the communities, through the society, through the entire country, that then benefits from that kind of growth of technology and innovation.
So one key issue that I've kind of read about is that there was a report from the US industry talking about a massive talent shortage that's going to happen in the US for themselves.
Absolutely.
Now here we are building our ecosystem and we want to create talent and we want to foster talent. At this point in time, do you see any possibility of talent built here but working elsewhere?
It's happening already. 80% of semiconductor engineers in India today work for the AMDs and the Intels and the Qualcomms and the Nvidias and the Applied Materials and Lam Research. Already, a lot of the original innovation and research that is going into devices, equipment, fabs are getting sourced out of India anyway through their R&D centers and through their labs. So India is already a big talent provider to the global semiconductor ecosystem. The problem now is, as digitization is accelerating and as electronification is accelerating, as semiconductorization is accelerating, there is shortage today. The fabs are being built, but there are no production engineers and process engineers. Big packaging units are being built, there are not enough packaging innovation people. There is a shortage. There was a report that I read, and I was in a conference with some US academics, and they said there was a shortage of almost 48,000 to 80,000, between that band, of talent required by the US semiconductor ecosystem. So I think this is all very, very clear that this represents an opportunity for us. I see this cup as a half full cup. A lot of people will look at this, and that is the brilliance and the genius of our Prime Minister. He did not take a look at that half full cup and say, oh, this mountain is too high to climb, we cannot climb it. I mean, he could have done that. He could have shrugged and said, let's not worry about semiconductor, let's worry about something else with that same amount of money. But no, he knows that this is strategically important for India's national security and technology security. It is also equally important for the changing nature of how world's tech ecosystem is going to grow and be shaped in the future. So this is India's success is important for India. In the Indian semiconductor ecosystem is equally important to the global value chains for electronics around the world.
But from a regulatory framework, and you've been you had the ringside view. You've been a entrepreneur. You worked in Intel, and then you're a policymaker. From a regulatory framework, what kind of interventions do you need to do to make sure that at least this talent issue is kind of sorted out in the next 15 years?
You can't regulate talent. You can't policy make your way into talent. What is being done and what that is the correct thing to do is to create these industry Indian academic institution partnerships, so that what comes out of our higher education ecosystem, what comes out as excellent talent, is talent that is aligned to what the industry sees as their requirement in the future. So that is the partnership that the Prime Minister has very uniquely designed into the national education policy and to all of the higher education research. Yeah. So that is the way to do it. That we have to prepare our youngsters not for some abstract knowledge, but knowledge plus the skills that are required by the semiconductor ecosystem, knowledge plus the skills that are required by the electronics ecosystem, knowledge plus the skills that are required for the AI ecosystem and the high performance compute. Why not have Qualcomm decide with IIT Delhi or Delhi College of Engineering or indeed Mumbai University what kind of additional credits and programs the student should go through?
But isn't that been a challenge? I mean, we were teaching COBOL to universities even in 2000.
No, that is exactly right. If you are teaching COBOL when the world wants C, that is what happens if the government specifies the curriculum. So what our government is doing, what Prime Minister is saying is, our national education system should deliver some knowledge, whether it is social sciences, physics, sciences, history, but the core skilling part of the national education policy, in higher education especially, and also in high school, should be designed and developed by those who are actually going to benefit from those skills. Not you and I, or not some retired minister or retired bureaucrat. It should be done by the head of product engineering in Intel, head of process engineering in TSMC, or head of packaging product innovation at the Tata plant to come out of electronics engineering with these kind of capabilities. So the design of those additional courses, the design of those skilling courses should be done by industry in partnership with the academic institution, rather than the academic institution do it in partnership with somebody who has no stake in the business or the outcome of this skilling. So that is the big change. And I think that we are going to see a lot of results as a result of that change.
Last question, sir. Intel, BPL, policymaker, from all the standpoints, today if you were at 2024, how confident are you that we will be I'm not using the word dominant, but a significant player in the semiconductor supply chain in 10 years' time?
Oh, I've absolutely no doubt. I think everybody worried about the fact that we would never be an electronics force, and today 14% of Apple iPhones are made globally. 14% of the global production is made in India in just 3 years. Just 3 years. 2021 they manufactured zero, and today they're doing 14% of the global production in India. So it is a question of reimagining what we can do, which our Prime Minister is doing, creating the policies and the push to implement those policies, which the government is doing, and then identify the innovators, identify the industry, and support them with full energy and support, so that they get the talent that they want, they get all the other infrastructural bottlenecks sorted out, and they can create these successful footprints in India that serve the world. And I am absolutely, I can say this, I'm not a man prone to rhetoric or
I'm aware of that.
Yeah, I am extremely confident. As we have demonstrated in electronics, semiconductor too, India will be a significant player in the global semiconductor eco chain.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chandrasekhar. Really appreciate the time that you spent with us and your views. Thanks a lot.